Good evening, Demon fans, and welcome back to the Demonland podcast. It's been a long summer, but footy's back. Well, yes, it is back. Our women's team are back for sure. They notched up their first win deep in enemy territory. Tonight I'm joined by two co-hosts that regular listeners of this podcast are familiar with. Demonland's own Grapeviney. Good evening, Grapeviney. How are you?
I'm excellent, Andy. I think it's great that we're broadcasting from Oktoberfest, even though it finished a few months ago. People are still here having a good time. So, yes.
Well, just as long as everything's legal, I've got no problem with it. We might talk about that one a little bit later on. And also joining us... you might know him as Adam 1.0 on Twitter. He has an entertaining and sometimes depressing blog called Demon Blog, and he's the author of The Great Depression. And on Demonland, he's known as Super Mikado. Good evening, Super Mikado.
Good evening. It's lovely to be back, and it's lovely to hear that jazzy theme song again. It really puts a spring in my step that I haven't had since we last chatted.
Yes, I don't think we're going to discuss every interview I've heard with any of the anyone to do with Melbourne. Either hasn't watched or rewatched the preliminary final. No one wants to talk about it. We're just moving on from that. Is that the same? You guys, have either of you watched or rewatched the...
Absolutely not. Look, I've had to take time out of my busy schedule to join the podcast tonight. I've had my head in the rule books. I'm up to volume 6 of the AFLX rule book.
Yes.
Which is the chapter on the Gatorade Game Changer. So there's a lot to get through there. So, no, I haven't had time to rewatch the prelim.
And can I say, I would actually prefer to pay good money to buy a ticket to watch AFLX than watch a replay of the preliminary final. I saw it unfold in front of my eyes once. I do not need to see a replay of it again. Yeah.
The memories are raw and they run deep, and I don't think I need to subject myself to that again.
I think the most insulting part of it for me was that in the middle of the West Coast theme song, I got the text message telling me my plane had been delayed.
Yes.
And then they played Believe by Cher, which, one, how is that ever played at a sporting venue? And two, that is actually, fun fact, my most hated song ever released. And it wasn't like a surprise loss, of course, but we got the siren with people cheering after they'd done the Mexican wave. Very bizarre. We got the plane delayed, and then we got my most hated song ever within the space of about 5 minutes. So, yes, I don't want to relive any of that.
I think I still have the sunburn from that day as well, sitting scorching in the sun. Well, we will we'll put that all behind us. If you'd like to join us on the program tonight to discuss any of the topics that we talk about, you can call us on 0390163666. You can Skype us at Demonland31. If you're listening to the show live, you can also join us in our chat room where you can ask questions or post comments by heading over to demonland.com/podcast. If you're listening to this later on SoundCloud or via iTunes or Android podcasting apps, be sure to subscribe to the show to receive updates when a new show drops, and don't forget to leave us favourable reviews to help more people find us. You can follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/Demonland31 or Twitter at Demonland, Instagram at Demonland31, or search us on YouTube by searching for Demonland Podcast. And you can listen to interviews that we've conducted with current and past players and coaches. Or if you just love talking about the Ds, why not join us at demonland.com, and you can chat with other Demon fans in this crazy asylum. Now, with all that out of the way, we had Super Mikado. You were in charge of the Demon bracket, which pits Melbourne players against each other. Can you give us a little synopsis of the history of it and how you picked the bracket this year?
Well, this was the eighth season, the first time we introduced it to the Demonland universe. So thank you very much for adding your support to it as well, because that certainly pushed the numbers well into record territory this year. The idea of it came about 10 years ago. I had a mate who would just send emails. He set up a bracket of just random things and would just send an email. So you get an email saying, which do you prefer, an eggplant or Old Trafford? And you would have to say which one you preferred for a particular reason. And being that everything comes back to Melbourne in my lifestyle, I thought, what better could we have for a Twitter gimmick than a bit of a knockout tournament of all the Melbourne players? But one thing I've been very clear on right from the start: the voting criteria is the person's own criteria. It is not who is a better player.
Yeah, I noticed on Demonland a lot of people were saying, giving their reason because so-and-so is a better player, but no one sort of just said...
if that is your favourite reason, that's fine.
No one just said,
it doesn't have to be.
I like their haircut, or,
Correct.
I like the way they go about
some
it.
Some people do, and couple of people today said, it's Nev's birthday, I'm going to vote for Nev for that reason. It's the 8th season now. I think now, well, if people don't know, we'll have to do the great reveal. The winner was Clayton Oliver by a score of 122 to 112 over Neville Jetta. Neville
done,
was,
Clary.
of course, the
Very
winner
close.
last year. Neville was our defending champion, so he's done well to get to the final again. So that leaves quite a few winners on our list now. We've actually got some real big hitters. You got everyone except the 2012 inaugural winner, James Frawley, is still on the list. So you got Tom McDonald once, 2013, Nathan Jones, 2014-15, Jack Viney, 16, Gawn, 17, Jetta, 18, and now Oliver, 19. So really sets up a cracker for Demon Bracket 9 next year with so many ex-champions in the field.
Were there any surprises this year, or did it pretty much go to form?
It mostly went to form. I think the wider your voting becomes, the less chances there is of a wild upset. For instance, 2013, if you think back to Tom McDonald's profile in 2013, he wasn't exactly a big household name at the time, but he got on Twitter and had a big campaign for himself. Got a few novelty posts, hung it on his teammates, stuff like that, and that carried him to a shock victory, the biggest shock victory of all time. But at that time, the voting was very limited. Like even then, the final over Mitch Clark, there was 97 votes. But before that, the semi-finals only had about 70 votes in them. So whereas we had 220 this year. So it was certainly, I think the more people you put in, the less chance there is of that massive surprise occurring. There wasn't too many close. This is actually the closest battle of the entire tournament. The next closest one was probably the other big upset was Melksham over Petrarca by 12 votes earlier in the tournament. So that was probably the only real upset. But if there was no enormous groundbreaking upsets, I think the first, either the first or second year,
for at least the next few years, it's going to be Nev and Tom versus the midfield.
Yep, and this is actually a blow back for the midfield, because for a few years this was the only tournament that backman and ruckman could ever win. Of course, the first two winners were both backmen, and then you had Max Gawn in 2017 and Nev last year. So it's a long overdue win in an award for the midfielders.
Well, it's certainly well deserved. There's a lot of hype surrounding Clayton Oliver, so well deserved. Can you just explain the way you seeded it?
Yes, well, it's the number one is the defending champion.
Yep.
So Neville was the man, and then it was the next seven in the best and fairest. It used to be, for a few years, it was the surviving members of the next seven of the best and fairest, because someone would always leave in the middle, but this year it was just a straight out. And the top three seeds went through, had an extra bye, so that was Jetta, Oliver and Gawn, just to safe in the knowledge that they would poleaxe any lower on
rookie.
the card players that we had, where they were moved back out one round, which I thought worked quite well. Now, there was one controversy.
Yes. Oh, yes. I forgot about this, but yes, please proceed.
Controversy. For the first time, and Demonland people will think that I'm just running an absolute shambles here, but this is the first time this has ever happened. In my rush to get this all live and going, I neglected to enter Stephen May in the competition. So he was in the list, he was in the field, never got a game.
It almost makes it all null and void, because he could have gone deep.
Yes, so the committee has come together And in the spirit of the WWE's Money in the Bank contract, which is where the person wins a match and may at any time of the year cash in a shot at the world title, we are offering Stephen May, any time for the next 365 days, the opportunity to write in to at DemonBlog on Twitter, demonblogger@gmail.com, and issue the challenge to Neville Jetta, to Clayton Oliver, pardon me, and we will put the title on the line in a one-on-one match.
Have you put this out on Twitter to ask May the question whether
he will be informed that is his right to make that challenge. Now, whether he does or not, I don't know, but he'll have to pick his time if he wants to have a chance of knocking off Oliver. I still don't like his chances. I think he would have done okay in the tournament, but I don't like his chances one-on-one with Clayton. But he might want to wait until he's had a particularly good game or something and then just bang, cash it in and take his shot and see if he can unseat the champion. But I can assure everybody involved in this tournament that there will be no such shenanigans next year. And that I have subjected myself to the same integrity commission as Darren Weir.
Yeah, this has got a bit of the Lawyer X scandal about it, where possibly up to the entire playing list could be challenging court, making court challenges against you in the competition, I would have thought.
Well, there's only one person we want to hear a challenge from, and that is a former captain of the Gold Coast. I want to see. I want to see that he knows he's got the challenge in hand. Don't want to see him use it yet because I don't think this is the right time. But he has 306 till the close of business on the 12th of February 2020, or the start of the tournament next year, whichever comes first. He may play that card. So we apologise to Stephen. Like I said, it's the first time that has ever happened due to my excessive haste and distractions in doing other things. The funny thing was no one actually noticed and pointed it out. I noticed it myself, and I did wrestle for a bit of whether I should just hush up and let it roll. But, you know, I thought the Integrity Commission might suspend the competition. I certainly want to get to Demon Bracket 10 in 2 years' time at least before I give up. So I came clean on it.
Well, I think if you do approach him on Twitter, I think he might be receptive. He's been pretty good in any time I've tagged him in a post or something, he's usually liked it. So I think he might see it and he might respond. And he's got an open invitation to come on the Demonland podcast and take you to task.
Or he could issue the challenge live.
That would be great.
And campaign.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. Well, that's what we want. We want campaigns. Like, I know Tom McDonald. I know he's out there. I know he secretly loves it. I think there might have been a bit of, let's not get involved with this, because apart from this year, apart from Max Gawn vote shaming someone for voting for Michael Hibbert over him, there wasn't any real player interaction. Like we had a couple of years ago, Jay Kennedy Harris was getting involved, and like I said, 2013 was just insane. With there was McDonald, Grimes, Jimmy Tompus, Nathan Jones, they were all into it. So I guess part of it's the drop-off in use of Twitter, because when I was looking for all the Twitter handles of the players to add to the posts, half of them haven't been posted on in about 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
There's not many active.
But McDonald, I know you're out there, and I know you secretly love it, and you want to get into the sizzle. But if you can't, if you're not allowed to, I respect that.
So what did Gorney say?
He just wrote back and said, "Excuse me."
Okay.
To the vote that was putting Hibbert over him. And again, this is the voters' prerogative that that particular person might have had a particular reason that they enjoyed the works of Michael Hibbert, and that's fine. I think probably the new people coming to the tournament in the Demonland universe probably not as used to that idea that it's not about the best player, unless if that's your favourite criteria, that's fine. And one thing, a statistical analysis of it, Jetta actually won quite comfortably on Twitter votes, and the very small collection of emailers came out strongly in favour of Jetta. But Oliver got up based on the votes of the forums, yourself and Big Footy, and Facebook. Both came out strongly in favour of Oliver, and that carried him over the Twitter audience. and to a 10-vote victory. It was. I was doing running tallies through the day, and it was pretty close most of the day. There was a few strange runs of like you'd get 5 people in a row on Twitter who'd all go for the same person, and then you'd get a run for the 5 people in a row all went for the other person. But it was the forums. The forums got the Hamburglar over the line.
Well, you mentioned, we were talking about this before we went to air, that it was people voted for Jeddah because it was his birthday today, and happy birthday, Neville. Do you think that did have a sway over the results?
I think that had a couple, but I also noticed one where it said, it looks like Jeddah's going to win, so I'm going to go for all of it. So that was someone basing it on the Twitter polls alone. They weren't doing their in an Anthony Green and looking deeper into the booths to understand that there might have been other factors. And of course, the Demonland electorate was straight in at number 2, the second biggest behind Twitter. And then your emailers are the smallest. There's just a few people who won't put their votes live, or they're not on Twitter. And of course, I put myself in that one as well. I always cast 1 vote each day, often for a losing candidate, including today, I must say.
So you're saying you don't publicly make your vote known?
No, I just put it in the emails, in the emailers section. But I certainly can assure the listeners that there are no vote rigging shenanigans available. I'm a number 1 Tom McDonald fan, so if I was going to rig it, I would have rigged it for him to get up. So in this one, I moderately preferred Nev. Again, not based on footy talent, just based on the fact that Nev is a great man, and Clary has many years ahead of him to dominate. But respect the views of the public, and Clayton certainly gives us another ex-champion in the field next year.
Were there any rookies that sort of got further than you expected, or were they pretty much out in the first round?
Yeah, well, we had a rookie preliminary round this year, which knocked out a few. So probably James Jordan. He picked up 35 votes against Tim Smith in the second round. He was beaten comfortably, but he picked up 35 votes. The other rookies were beaten pretty handily. Tom Sparrow went down 84-51 to Braden Pruce. Toby Bedford suffered a spectacular 130-5 mauling at the hands of Jake Lever. The only new player, due to one of the new players not getting a start, to get through to the second round was Braden Pruce.
Yeah, I expected that.
And he put on, I thought he might have done better actually against
so
Jaden Hunt, but he went down 105-32 in a pretty, it's not bad. 32 is not a bad score. But I thought he might have got sort of up to the 50s maybe and lost a close one. But a lot of support for him, given that, he's played about 6 games and we haven't seen much of him other than, hauling some heavy-looking weights in one video. So definitely a good start for Pruce.
Were there any golden ducks, any unanimous rounds?
No, there's 2 things that have never happened. We've never had a 0. In the early days when the electorate was very small, we had a couple of 1s. And we've never had a draw. Now, the draw is a real chaos feature because that puts both men into the next round.
Okay.
So you do get the odd 2-3-way match if we've got uneven numbers. But that I've always wanted a draw, but never been able to get one up.
You don't play extra time?
Only in the grand final.
Okay.
And it was looking that way in this one for a while. We were looking at the old FA Cup style replay tomorrow.
But
fortunately that was avoided by a decisive result. So yeah, the biggest win was actually Neville Jeddah over Jordan Lewis, 135-4.
Wow.
In round 3. So Lewis went through Tim Smith in the second round to qualify, but then he ran into the Jeddah bulldozer. And then the same round, Tom McDonald beat Billy Stretch 134-5. So they were the 2 biggest wins ever in the competition, just because we've had a lot more people involved now. But there's certainly 4 and 5 are nowhere near the lowest anyone's ever scored. Like, for instance, I've just opened. Here's a classic for you from the 2013 preliminary round. Jimmy Toumpas defeated Josh Tynan 44-2. And then Toumpas went on to beat Shannon Burns 37-8. going into round 2 where he failed to Tom McDonald, 54 to 11. He ran into the steamroller campaign of McDonald.
This must have been Tumpus's first year before he played a game, correct?
Correct. Before he was driven to Port Adelaide. So yeah, it's definitely, yeah. I think we've had a couple of ones over the years, but never a nil yet. And I think now I reckon that you often see halfway through the day someone who just comes in and just does a full one down the line of the people who are losing by a lot. So I doubt we'll ever see a 0 now.
Yeah, there's always one in the crowd. We had a poll going on D Milan. We'll talk about a bit later about the logo on the jumper. And someone wrote halfway through the day, well, it's unanimous one way, so I've just voted the other way.
Yeah, I know. You'd hate to be on a jury with these people.
Yeah. Well, you hate to be the accused on a jury.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was a really good competition this year. I probably didn't have had to rush it a bit just due to other commitments, but I really appreciate everyone getting on board and having a crack at it, and we'll bring it back next year. And I'll just reiterate that it doesn't have to be about the best player, but if that's what you think, that's the most important thing to you. But it can be about anything else. So congratulations to Clayton Oliver. Thank you for everybody for participating, and we'll roll out again sort of late January, mid-February next year.
Yeah, I look forward to it. Well, we'll move on from that. Congratulations to Clary. I've got a feeling, he'll be back up thereabouts again next year. All right, so pre-season training, we're well in the swing of things. Have either of you boys had the pleasure of going down and catching the boys live?
No.
Super.
No, I've only been to one training session ever, and it was when Neil Craig was in charge. And he said to Jack Fitzpatrick, "Don't just fucking waddle at it." That was his exact thing he yelled at Jack Fitzpatrick with Neil Craig with his socks pulled up to his knees. So that's my only appearance at training. I am considering heading down to the scratch match against Collingwood on the 22nd. Yeah, I'm available for that.
I'll be there too, so I'll see you down there.
Yes. Well, I'm just hoping it's not one of these real ropey scratch matches where they sort of don't keep score and play 8 quarters that are 5 minutes long and, stop the game halfway and move players around and stuff like that. But because obviously it's all about my entertainment value, not about the footy club. So I'm hoping it's at least a semi-respectable practice match conditions.
Well, I did get to one pre-Christmas. I did go down to a training, and I must say, it seems very, very professional these days. I don't often go to pre-season training, but the last time I went was probably even before the time that you've gone last. There are a lot of support staff down there. They're all wearing the red T-shirts, and they seem to outnumber the players. There's that many support staff. And that's not just all water boys or anything. These are actual, trainers, and there's a lot down there. So it's a really professionally run thing. There's drones flying around. They've got cameras set up. It's pretty good. So, if you can get down to training, it's pretty good. Were you guys concerned at the numbers that we had in rehab over the summer? We seem to have a lot in rehab. I think it's starting to dwindle down.
Not really. Most of them are not serious. Like, obviously, a lot of guys had post-season surgery, but most are due back pretty soon. I'd rather have the situation that we've got now than the one we had last year where T-Mac and Viney, we knew, were gone for, X number of weeks, 6 weeks, I think it was. It seems like Lever is the only one who's really definitely going to come back late, it would seem.
Yeah, well, when they say late, he wants to. Everyone who speaks to him, he's saying he wants to be there round 1. Other people are getting the round 3 to 5, but it could be even till 7 or thereabouts.
Yeah.
So he seems like the only one. The other two, I'll give you the current rehab list. It's Jones, Viney, Melksham, Jeddah, and Hibbard, who had knocks or something the other day at training. So they're just sort of there temporarily. May, who's just been, had that pulled out of the AFLX, and we've got Lever, who's...
He'll be devastated.
Yeah, he would be.
He's also pulled out of Demon Bracket.
Yeah, well, that was not his fault.
I was in cahoots with the AFLX organisation to punish him for not playing.
Very good.
Koladajnij, Baker, and Tim Smith. So that's what it is now. Jones, I think it's a bit worrying. He's been there
Jones
for a long time.
hasn't started running yet, has he?
No. I think
That's the issue with Jones.
He apparently today wasn't even out at training. And Melksham's been in the rehab group for quite a while. Sort of doesn't look... So anyway, no one's saying that he's not going to be round one, but I'd put a question mark on that. But other than that, Lever and Jones... I think probably aren't.
The only good thing could say about Melksham, if he was to miss a period of time, is that there's a lot of competition for that spot. When you consider Charlie Spargo, Mitch Hannon, Jeffy Garlett is apparently really training well so far. So
trading the house down.
Yeah.
There's also Corey Wagner down forward as well. So.
Yep, Joel Smith potentially playing there too. So,
well, by all accounts, Joel Smith has been training with the forwards. I would definitely say he's going to be playing in the forward line this year, at least start there.
With Lever, look, I'm happy to not rush him after the Viney incident of a couple of years ago where we rushed back and it all went pear-shaped after that. So, especially now, if May is there and ready to go, it's not that bigger loss for us. At least we've got one other big, tall, experienced player down there. So I'd be happy for Lever. As concerned as I am about our first few rounds, we've got a pretty tough draw in the first few rounds and a pretty tough draw in the last few rounds, I think. So I want to get off to a good start, but at the same time, he's got many years left in him. Let's not bloody break him straight away.
Yeah. Of the traded players were traded in, who are you the most excited to see play this year?
I'm excited for Bruce. Like, obviously, May, I'm very excited for May. But, yeah, looking at Bruce, I'm really interested to see how they manage him and Gawn together.
Great Viney?
Interested in them all, really.
Yeah.
And particularly to see what KK can do. I think there's that sort of unfulfilled potential there, or perhaps not unfulfilled, but, obviously he had these concussion issues, a bit like Angus. So he's meant to be very silky. So if he can be playing, near his best footy, then that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, and he was just basically tossed in on top of the May deal.
Yeah.
Anyway, so whatever we get for him is almost almost a bonus. So I agree. Look, if he can play well, then we're laughing on that trade already, I think.
Yep.
From what you've seen, read reports, do you think any of the rookies might play this year?
Not immediately that spring to mind. You never quite know, do you? I mean, Bailey Fritsch appeared out of nowhere.
We wouldn't have expected Spargo to play as much as he did either last year.
Same goes for Spargo. So who knows? Is it Marty Hall?
Well, he's more
Collingwood
of a
VFL player.
He's mature age, so I'd expect he might get some games early on. If any of the young guys,
particularly with Lever missing,
and if any of the out of the young guys, that Tom Sparrow, everyone's saying is built, pretty mature-bodied. He might get a game earlier rather than later, but we've got the luxury as well, which is great, that we don't have to rush any of these guys in. They'll get in on their merits. So it's not like back in the days with drafting Jack Watts that we sort of rushed him into the team as the great white hope. We don't need to do that.
At least we gave him about 11 weeks. What about Tumpus, as we previously discussed? That was just bang straight in and straight into a carnage session. Yes, I agree now. It's better that we can season these players through the VFL and also a VFL program that is effectively our program. It's the Melbourne Demons in all but name, as opposed to 10 years ago when Casey was running their own race and sort of just throwing our players in the mix to suit themselves. So I think, look, I'm happy for all the players, all these rookies, right down to your Corey Wagners and all that, to season themselves for a few weeks and, prove themselves before we use them.
Other massive news just announced yesterday, a new sponsorship, true to form, true to type, stereotype. Jaguar are our new co-principal partners, as they're called these days. Back of the jumper sponsor. You happy with that?
I love the look. If that's how it's going to look, as in what's up on the thread, that looks great on the back of the jumper.
Yeah, that picture you saw at the back of the jumper, that's on our new training jumpers. We'll talk about those in a second. That's how it'll look. 100%. That's how it'll look on the game day Guernsey.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure.
Well done.
Yeah, it's a great.
When I saw that somebody said it was true to type and a perfect fit, I thought maybe it's going to be the company that makes those little red and blue stickers that we stick on the back of our cars. That would have been true to type as well, I suppose.
I immediately, when someone said that, I immediately thought Range Rover, either that or
Mount Buller.
Mount Buller.
Well, someone was saying that Range Rover owns Jaguar.
No, so what it is there's a parent company out of India,
Tata,
whatever. They're the parent company. They own both Jaguar and Land Rover, which is Range Rover.
Right. Well, I must admit, I must be a bad Melbourne fan, because when I saw this news, my first reaction was I had no idea Jaguar was still an operating concern. I thought they had gone the way of the Dodo, and potentially maybe they did at some point and they got resurrected or something. But I think it's a great logo. I certainly can't see myself affording to buy any of their cars anytime soon. I'd be more of an Opel man on my budget.
Isn't this like with the New Balance discount where you just get 25% off?
10%.
Yeah, and you can stack them up. You just grab the codes off people who don't need them and buy 12 cars at once. So that's the end of Infinity, I take it. We won't be seeing them again.
They're already off all the paraphernalia that I've seen of any of the coaches.
Which is kind of a disappointing, because it ruins the gag about, open the envelope. How many years will it take for Melbourne to win a premiership? Open the envelope, Infinity. Ha ha ha. So that's pretty much put that classic gag away. But I think it's a great logo, and I would very much like to drive one of their cars if they want to offer me one, and as a ambassador.
Well, if they would like to sponsor this podcast, I'll happily take one.
Yeah, we can do highbrow chat to appeal to the A's and B demographics that they'll be going after.
We could take the show on the road and stop at different spots and have giveaways for all the people listening and standing there watching.
Well, what was that? What was that thing they had on the website last year with the Infinities? And it was the driving around in the car, and basically a footy rip-off of that driving coffee with comedians thing. We could do that.
Cars, yeah.
We could do that in a Jaguar.
Definitely. So Jaguar, you can contact Demonland at demonland.com. We'll happily take your cars. It's great to have a instantly recognisable sponsor on the jumper, because no offence to AHG, but I didn't know I still don't know what they do. It's good to have someone.
Do you can still get Snowy Mountain drinking water?
Really?
Can you build a Pioneer Homes?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Because I live in the middle of a housing estate and I ain't seeing nobody. There's a company at the end of my street called Twitter Homes with the Twitter logo, which I can't think is legal. But I've certainly never seen a Pioneer Homes being built.
They probably no longer exist. It's great to have that a big name sponsor now. Apparently it's only a year so far. I think from what people are saying, it sounds like it's dollar wise, it's quite a large sponsorship. Something to do with because Toyota are the AFL's major sponsors.
It has to be a certain size.
Yeah, it has to be a 7-figure size. So that's great. That makes it at least $1 million. It's probably plus that. That's great. If they maybe they're just putting their feet, testing the waters, and as long as we are successful next year, go into finals deep, they'll probably be around, for another year or maybe a longer term deal.
I always just wonder with these, like the amount of cars, like if it was it's Toyota, Ford, like people are buying Toyota, all those cars left, right, and centre. Like I wonder how many people are actually purchasing Jaguars in Australia, and versus paying $1 million for a sponsorship, at least $1 million for a sponsorship. How many more Jaguars they're going to sell? It's like same with the Infinities. Opel was a totally different case because apparently that sold about 1,800 cars in all of Australia before they pulled out of Opel. So they certainly did their dough there. But I just would like to know, again, Jaguar, if you're listening, give me a free car, one, and I would like to know what is the goal of a sponsorship like this with a company like Jaguar, which is not your mass market car that people are going to rock on down to the Jaguar dealer on a Saturday and pick one up. I wonder what their aim is to get out of it.
We probably need a marketing expert to come on and talk to us about that. I certainly don't know anything about it, but if you are a marketing expert, 0390163666, give us a call and let us know. Good to have Jaguar on board, and look forward to many years of them giving the club money. If you had been down to training, you would have seen unveiled during the Maroochydore training camp the new training jerseys, Guernseys. Jerseys, very American word. What do you guys think? Grapeviney kind of reminds me of the mid-90s training jumper that I think you had. I had it.
Yeah, I've got the reverse one actually, which is the reserves one, which is the red with the blue monogram.
Okay, yeah.
And you're right, it does look a little bit like that, and I like it. Yeah. I like the new one.
I like it
too.
I
agree. I think it's great.
Straightforward and simple, and yep.
Yeah, it looks good. The other thing to do with that is we had a poll on Demonland. I saw on Twitter. Twitter user Bobby Clark had put up a sort of a. You've seen the Zurich logo we currently got, which I think someone on Demonland described it as looking like a sticker that's just stuck over the AHG, old AHG logo on it.
Yep.
So
like the sticky tape over Energy Watch.
Exactly like that. And I'm not sure if that's the case, but he was proposing that we do what we've done on the training jumper and just have a nice, clean Zurich logo done just cleanly without that background. Obviously put into the
it's the reverse
jumper,
so that it's in the white rather than
Yeah, and I think it just looks cleaner. I totally agree with that. I don't know if that can be done. Certainly on Demonland, on our poll today, with 85 members, I think 90% had said yes. So it's a majority rules. Come on, Deez.
Well, the other 5% has been wacky, because that is a no-brainer. Like I can see that the screenshot that you've posted here, that is an absolute no-brainer from a design perspective. But I just wonder if you're a marketing expert, ring in whether they want it to be in that box because
to stand out
it catches the eye more. But it does. It looks like, and I think we might have sticky taped Opel eventually over the top of Energy Watch, because I've got a jumper that if you hold up to the light, you can actually see the Energy Watch logo behind the sponsor. But it does look pretty cheap and nasty, and then comes right across the red V, which is silly in itself. The only reason I can think of that they wouldn't do that is because they don't want it to get lost on the jumper during play.
Yeah, look, I can agree with that, and look, it might be too late to change anything. They might have already had the jumpers all, created and done. So, although they have to get all the jumpers with the Jaguar logo on the back, so maybe there is time still. Simon Goodwin contract extension. Did you see that article this week, which sort of hinted or suggested that maybe instead of, he might go what was it that he'd get a salary? He'd go do what Bolton at Carlton is, who's on a salary and actually an employee of the club. I don't know. Do you guys understand what they want to do here?
I saw an excruciating press conference with, was it Bolton or someone else at Carlton? No, it was Chris Judd on the Footy Classified, actually, where he was trying to explain Bolton's contract and the way it's structured, and he was sort of defending themselves for not renewing the contract, but it made for great telly because Judd was squirming, which is always good to watch. But no, I don't understand the legalities of it or the way it's structured for certain things.
The last time we tried to get cute with the coaching structure, we had the coach reporting to the CEO, and in the Dean Bailey era, and that didn't really work a treat. So I hope whatever shenanigans they've got lined up this time, that the reporting lines remain sensible.
Yeah,
and I don't think he could take anything.
He's going to get an extension, and he deserves one and should.
Yeah, I don't think there's anyone who will disagree with not giving the guy an extension. Do either of you guys know whether when he comes out of contract?
No.
Okay.
I would have assumed 3 years, this being the third year. But yeah, whether there's been triggers and the like in the background, they certainly haven't talked it up. But I can't see in these days a coach coming in on less than 3 years, because they'll either get the security of the 3. I mean, people are so desperate to coach, they'd probably come in on 1 year, but then that would be the big media story that you don't have any faith in this bloke. You're only hiring him for 1 year or 2 years. So I can't see him being on anything less than 3. And I think that, pending a complete random disaster this year, I don't see any reason why he shouldn't get an extension.
It says here that, and the Herald Sun, the amount of times I have to put my username and password into their website is just ridiculous. Melbourne is considering placing Simon Goodwin on a rolling contract and not a set-term contract as talks ramp up on a new deal. Doesn't really give much information about what that entails, but
I'd love to know what he thinks about that. Because it's one thing, he's going to sign it, but if he's on the rolling contract, does whoever get the boot at the end of this year and he goes, I'd like some security, they offer him a 5-year contract or something, and he goes, see you later. I'm out the door, I'm off to coach St Kilda, because they're going to give him a contract, whereas we're presumably only rolling it from year to year. You'd need to know the intricacies of it.
Yeah, who knows?
Yep. All right. Moving on from that. Well, do we talk about your favourite competition, Super Mikado, which is the AFLX competition? Were you at all surprised on? First of all, did you watch the draft? I'm guessing you didn't.
No. See, I'm trying to take to this, like, when it comes to AFLW, and you see people complaining about it and bitching about it, and yet they're still watching it. I always think that's the stupidest thing of all time. If you don't like something, don't watch it, and that's where it comes to me with AFLX. Like, even last year when we were playing, the only reason I turned on was when I found out we made the final, because and this is the saddest thing of all time, I thought I may never see Melbourne win anything in my lifetime. And so now I have. I've seen them win some crappy X that looked like it was bought at the bloody Lincraft foam department. If it's not, the team is not called Melbourne, I have no interest whatsoever. And yeah, I don't want to be that person like the AFLW people who can't help but hate watch it. I reserve the right to throw in a few nasty comments here and there, but otherwise I would just exclude myself from the process, and I wish them well.
Well, look, I did watch this draft because run a Demons website. So I've got a sort of, Demons are involved in this. I wanted to see who's picked. I sort of, it was quite a funny feeling. I didn't want our players to be picked, but I was a little bit insulted that we didn't get one of our players picked until like pick 27 or whatever it was. I thought I think we're underrated as players, but then I realised, I think they had a pool of about 100 players. I think all clubs had to put up players' names, and I have a feeling we did hold back quite a number of players on the guise of they're still in the rehab. Like I think at the time, Oliver, Brayshaw, Petraka, all those type of guys were probably, and Viney weren't included in that pool because they're, inverted commas, in the rehab group, and I think that was a tactical
There's no doubt that's
reason.
the way it works, and there's no doubt that you have to put up a certain number of reasonable calibre players. You can't just, let's say it's 8 players you have to nominate. You can't just send your 8 draftees and rookies.
Yeah.
You've got to send some known players.
So that's why we had Jeddah as well, because afterwards I put onto his Instagram that he should have been picked, and he said, no, his body's not ready. So, I think we had a number of players we kept out of it. But, Tommy McDonald, May, they probably put him down. And I have a feeling they knew May was going to get picked, and they knew that he was going to pull out, because I think he tweaked his hammy before all of this, even prior to Maroochydore.
Good conspiracy. So you're saying you have to put up a certain number of good players. So put up one that you know is going to pull out with a legitimate injury, so that's one less player that we have play. It's very smart.
Well,
very smart.
I think we did that. Maybe Tommy McDonald might just toes a bit sore on the night.
But how did we end up with effectively the 2 bookends of our team in there? Like, I understand Melksham is in the rehab group as well, because from what I understand of last year, he was the standout best player practically in the entire competition.
Yeah.
But obviously we're not picking people on that front. We're picking them on razzle dazzle and how much press they can get. I'm surprised Gawn didn't get roped into it, being someone that they could wheel out for media and stuff like that. That was a surprise. Yeah,
I'm surprised. Melbourne obviously didn't allow it. It has to be, because he would have been perfect for the AFL. Everyone from other clubs, they love him. He's a character. He would have been great for the banter that they had going on that night. There must have been something there.
And their ridiculous attempt at trying to be like the NBA, where it's like the players will have an open dress code, so they'll be able to wear whatever they like when they come into the stadium. It's like, oh my God, I'm like I put on Twitter, I'm trying so hard to be live and let live about this, but that is just so cringeworthy.
Oh.
And I still don't understand where they're going with this. And I remember posting this last year, when people are like, oh, yeah, but this could get the game up internationally. Like, where does this lead to the game being played internationally? Like, are they going to put it – is this – they always talk about when Port Adelaide play in China, or this game was seen on the Chinese TV channel and 1 million people watched it. Is the DVD going to Shanghai TV?
No.
Is it going to go on ESPN? Is it going to go – like, they've just lost the – they've lost the thread of what they're supposed to be doing. It's like when the sub rule came in and they couldn't decide – what it was for. Was it for reducing congestion? Was it for replacing injured players? They couldn't get the story right on what they wanted it for. And it's the same with this. Like, at least explain to us what you're trying to do, and then we might be more open to it.
Look, I don't think they're marketing this to you and I, to the generation above us. Certainly not. This is purely for the kids. Like my nephews, who are 10 and 12, love this. Might have to do because they're Geelong supporters and Dangerfield's face is plastered all over this thing, so that could be part of it. But they are all in, and all their mates are all in. They love it. So that's, I guess, who they're marketing towards. But I agree, there's no market for it overseas. No one's going to all of a sudden want to play this AFLX game. I think they missed the boat. Rather than doing all these, the comic book theme that they've gone with, maybe because of the whole Marvel Stadium thing. I think they should have done State of Origin. Have Vic, Western Australia, South Australia, and the Allies. That might have made people.
That
like
would
you
certainly
and me.
have got it. I mean, not that I have zero interest in State of Origin personally, but our generation, that would have roped them in more.
That's what I'm saying. So the kids are already in. It doesn't matter whether you do comic books or whatever. They're probably in. Try and get us on board by having a bit more of a stake in it with the whole state thing. But yep, that's AFLX. We'll see how it goes as long as none of our players get to look. All it's going to take is like a Dangerfield or someone or Rewalt to get injured and have a serious injury, and we'll see what happens from there.
It should be pointed out our practice match against Collingwood is actually on the same day as that.
That's the morning of, yeah.
So, touch wood, we don't get a situation where we get a serious injury in that.
Oh yeah.
And then every man and their dog comes out unscathed in AFLX, and it'll be like, well, look, you played a bloody half-assed scratch game against Collingwood, and person X, broke their jaw or something. And look, here's Patrick Dangerfield, and he's just swagging away with a big bag of cash, having had a lovely trot around Marvel Stadium of a night. So, yeah, injuries can happen anywhere. There's pre-season games, there's training sessions. How many times have we had players not even make it to the end of January and they're out for the season? So I'm not as concerned about the injury side of things, and I'm really not all that concerned about, fatigue or anything. Like, people sort of hang it on Dangerfield, like, oh, you're the guy who wants a shorter season, but you're taking the cash to play this. Like, the intensity of this will be like walking down to the shops to get a chicken roll. It's will be so low intensity. That's why let it happen. I don't know what the kids who are getting into it, I don't know what the next step is for them. Like, that's fine, but we just come back in a year and the kids come again and go, this is awesome. And then they come back in a year and then, 3 or 4 years later, they can't be bothered. And some other kids come in, like, is there going to be a secondary circuit running? Are they going to run it in the off season to try and rope in their kids and to try and take on your Big Bash, your A-League in that market? That's the only thing I can think of. But then do you get the best players? Like, yeah. You could have anyone play AFLX in November.
Yeah, but no one's going to go watch some no-name play
Correct.
AFLX in November. Like, the whole I don't like this whole concept. Like, I can understand why they did the Big Bash, because cricket, the long-form game, losing viewers, whatever.
Yeah. But it's the same game.
I can understand. Yeah.
Big Bash is just shorter cricket.
Yes.
They're not hitting. You don't get 8 for hitting it into a certain spot of the ground and upside down bats and all that. Like, they keep their shenanigans to bails that light up and things like that.
Well, footy as it isn't broken enough, even though the AFL continue to tinker with rules and all that. It's not broken that you need to change the rules and change the form, to make this shorter game. And then I think to make this shorter game more exciting, the AFL think that they need to do, the 20 points or whatever, or they had some ridiculous new rule, in the last 10 minutes. I don't know.
I think that it's actually, if you're going to do it, you should be as stupid as possible. You should be turning into an NBA Jam style thing. Oh, I'm serious. Like, if you're going to do this, it's a joke that you've got the best players involved in doing this. But if you're going to play a different version of the game and you're trying to flog it to people who love video games and, kids who love esports and all this kind of stuff, then it should go as zany as possible within reason, of course. Like, it's still got to be generally AFL, but let them have the playing the Joker for double points. And I reckon they should have spots on the ground where if you kick a goal from, this particular spot, you get 7 points or something like that. Like the board game of Test match. If you hit it in a certain zone, you get a certain amount of runs. Like, I reckon just go as bloody crazy as possible. If you're going to do it anyway, there's no point in playing this game with a couple of rule tweaks and then it's just less players on a square field doing exactly the same thing. Like, I don't understand the point of that. I would probably get into it more if it was a bit more zany shit going on, multi-balls and all that kind of stuff. But as it is, it's kind of just token stuff being chucked on top. And, again, good luck to the kids. But I don't understand what the strategy in this whole thing is.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the reason we've got all the stars playing is because they had to. Otherwise, no one would go watch it. But
the only other option you've got is to rope in the sort of recently retired players. You don't want your EJ Whitten people who are totally past it. But you're not going to fill enough. Even if you had half. If you had Dangerfield and Brent Harvey or something, even then, is anyone gonna care? Maybe they will. I guess it's the same as if you're going to have Dangerfield and whoever was the last pick in the draft on the team. Like once they got to the bottom of that list, it was some pretty ropey players. No one's going to see them. They're all going to go see the top end. So whether you could have had the sort of five great players on each team and then just ring in a couple of well-known recent ex-players, again, that might have got a few people out there to watch.
So I take it you're not going.
No, with respect, yes, I will be doing anything other, and I will not be watching. But again, if people like it, if people are into it, best of luck. But I choose not to participate.
Grapevine, are you going to be attending at Marvel Stadium?
It's a pass for
it's
me.
A pass. Well, I am going. I'm taking my nephews again. They wanted to go, and that's the reason I'm going. Taking my nephews and a couple of my daughters down there. So, I'll fly the flag for Tom McDonald.
It's your fault when by round 15 there's like a Gatorade superchanger in the main stuff.
I won't cheer, I promise.
Doesn't matter. As long as your number goes through the gate, and they'll count it twice.
They will.
You've done everything they want you to do.
I'm a sucker. So, do we discuss your thoughts on the Jack Watts video?
How munted do you have to be before this incident to think that people aren't going to take the snorting of a substance that is legal the wrong way?
Yeah, but
that is my rhetorical question.
For me, it's not even whether it's legal or not. I think it's a bad look. That it doesn't look like it's the first time you've done something.
Do you not
like
think that that's going to bring scrutiny on you when you're a player that you've had nothing but scrutiny for 10 years? Like that's what I'm saying. Like how blind on, let's just say, alcohol or something was he to think that this was a sensible idea in his head to say, like a normal person would go, right, there's a guy with a camera, a guy with a phone.
It's probably not.
I have had
his mate
10
either.
years of scrutiny in my career. I reckon that having to explain that this is a legal substance is too worth the hassle to actually do it. But I am impressed that in his famous leaked Facebook messages, he expressed the wish to do a line off a pair of Bristols, and in a legal way, he's achieved that.
Yes. Not a good look, and I'm quite happy that it wasn't our mess to clean up for once. And I was happy that most of the articles had pictures of him in a Port jumper and were primarily referred to as a Port player, not a Melbourne player or an ex-Melbourne player. That was the silver lining for me.
Yeah, somebody responded on Demonland that it's going to be interesting to see how he responds to this, but I don't think that's going to be that interesting at all. We know how he responds. He's had X number of kicks up the bums and pats on the heads and hugs, and nothing changes. So what's going to change this time?
I don't like the idea that we've got to play them in round one because if there's any time ever where he's looked like he's going to break out, it's always in the first few weeks of a season. So
he's not going to play. I'd be surprised if he plays round one.
I'm just hoping not, just for this reason. And there'll be people yelling stuff about swimming over the fence and everything. Like, let's just come in, just take the week off and start your season in week 2.
Grapeviney, for what reason do you think he's not going to play? Because of this indiscretion?
Well, I know he was ordered back to training along with the first years.
Yep.
As punishment for the swimming
Yep.
incident. And with this on top of it, I'd say he's very, very much on the outer. And I'd even go so far as to say this is his last year playing senior football in the AFL.
Yeah, you would think if he doesn't hit his straps and get a higher possession count and more goals on the board, because every week I sort of have a look at his stats. They're always about 10 possessions, 12 possessions, 3 marks, 1 goal. That's about it.
And if Port miss the finals again this year, they're going to start not saying they're going to clear out and bottom out, but they're going to start looking for who can we chop that's not adding value. So you wouldn't want to be making a dickhead of yourself going into this season if Port Adelaide don't do well.
Yeah,
which I don't think particularly they will.
No.
All right. Looking towards the JLT, expectations, you think we're going to rest players? Think we'll try out the 2 rucks or just play Prusy solo? Expectations, boys?
Not sure. We in the last few years, we've tended to take these hit-outs pretty seriously. Although I think, particularly in the early Ruse years, that was because we needed as much match practice as possible.
But remember, we've come off a longer year and expecting a longer year.
Loads and things like that. So, we can only wait and see.
I think the rookies will get a run. I think they'll probably split it. They'll probably play one with Gawn and Bruce and then one with just Bruce on his own.
Yeah, see how he stacks up.
Yeah, look, there's no point playing Gawn in both. We know exactly what he's going to do. There's no surprises there. They just need to test out whatever their plan is to play both of them. There's a few years back there, pretty much every year until last year, that we'd die a little bit later in the season because we'd played basically 4 or 5 games at the start of the season, or 3 or 4 games at the start of the season with just our best squad. Yeah. And then one year we died in the middle under Ruse. One year we died in the middle of the season. One year we died sort of 3/4, 90% of the way through the season. One year we died, in the last round last year under Goodwin when we did it. So I think now we've got the luxury of there are players that you just know what you're going to get. We don't need to be putting them out in I know one of the games is in one's at Casey, one's at Shepparton. We don't need to be putting them out on some ropey ground at Shepparton when we know exactly what we're going to get. And you've got these rookies, the ones who are reasonable chances of playing it sometime in the first half of the year. You may as well just roll them out against a decent opposition and see how they go.
Shepparton, the game. First of all, are these JLT games, are they televised? I believe they were last year.
Yeah, they've all been televised for the last couple of years. I think the last year, when we played the Bulldogs in Ballarat, that was the last year they didn't televise all the pre-season games, or certainly all our games.
I seem to recall watching that. How would I have watched that?
It was broadcast online by
watch that.
Some crappy visual quality. I saw the highlights of later with the camera going all over the place with Hutchie on commentary.
Yeah, I seem to remember watching that. So I see that they're selling tickets to those games, and I thought somebody said it had sold out. Maybe the Casey game had sold out, and I found that quite difficult to believe.
I'm tempted by the Shepparton one, but at the same time, if it was sold out, that would probably be a good thing for me to not do that. I'm halfway there, so it wouldn't be too big a trip for me. But it would probably be better just as part of my my year of trying to slightly uncouple from Melbourne as a shift worker, not to be going to all ends for practice matches.
How far is Shepparton from Melbourne? It's 2 hours.
I think it's about
hours.
2 and a bit hours. So,
Be a bit
yeah,
too far for me.
I'd be into it, but if it wasn't on TV, I'd be 100% into it. But I think it's time to start just calming down a bit after a decade of bloody destruction going to every end of the earth. And then Casey is just way too far from me. It's like a 3.5 hour round trip now to get to Casey and back for me. So I think I'll just tap out of this preseason, and just watch these on telly.
Now you've had plenty of time to look at the draw this year. Did you have you calculated how many games you can attend? What's your?
I don't know about actually attending in person, but I think it's about an 18-4 or 17-5 split of games where I'll at least be able to watch.
Oh, that's good.
Without having to do watching on a phone under my desk at work like I was on the Fremantle AFLW game. I was just doing a dodgy watching it on a phone, and missed much of the third quarter when we actually played well because I was doing important things that I was required to be doing. So there'll probably be a couple of them during the year, but yeah, I think I'll be good for most of them, which is good. So if anyone wants, the offer's already gone out on Demon Blog, but if anyone wants to be a guest reporter, I'll certainly be looking for guest reporters for a couple of games this year.
Interesting. So AFLW, we'll just quickly touch on. You said you watched Under Your Desk 1. Did you watch last week's game?
Yes. I think Collingwood are no good.
Yeah,
so I'm not sure what to take out of that.
And the conditions were terrible as well.
It was that the Fremantle game, it was just an anomaly in us kicking goals. And even then we did it in bursts. There's just, I think, the defence was pretty ropey that day as well, but they very much improved against Collingwood. Yeah. I think the secret is find a forward who can take a mark over a head, and we'll be laughing.
Yeah,
like that's the only thing that team lacks. And I note because Tyler Hanks took a really good overhead mark in the forward line to kick the last goal of the game last week.
Smallest girl on the field as well.
Yeah, but you need somebody who can take a mark. Like I reckon that's the secret to unlocking AFLW. Get a player who can take a grab, and a sort of a running from behind, leaping mark over someone's back or something, 15, 20 metres out from goal, and you just smash the competition if you do that, because a lot of it at the moment is just dump kicks into the forward line, because there's no point hitting a player 45 metres out on a lead because she's not going to make the distance. So I think a lot of the goals are going to have to be created closer to the goals, and that's going to lead to a lot of just dump kicks. So if you get a player down there who can crash a pack and take a mark, potentially some crummers as well would be nice. I think that even without Daisy Pearce and the team, that would just, we'd win the comp easy that way. But now, without that, and with that loss in the first game, I reckon if they lose this week, they're in a lot of trouble.
I'm not sure how they came about with they got the two conferences, and if you have a look at the ladder this week, the top 5 teams, if you join the ladders together, the top 5 teams are all from our conference. Do you know how they worked out these conferences? Because they're clearly not...
Dartboard, blindfold.
Yeah. Was that how they did it? Was it a random thing, or did they try to seed the teams?
No, not sure. I'm sure there was some scientific bullshit behind it.
Yeah, it hasn't worked out very well.
I think I like the first round where we were below the ladder. We kicked the second highest score in the competition, and we were below a team that had kicked 1 goal 11. Which is just a quirk. It's not a quirk of conferenthink, or anything, but that was an insult.
Yeah. Well, boys, it's good to be back. I think we'll be back during the JLT. Hopefully, you might.
Do we know? Does anyone know what JLT stands for yet?
It's a company, isn't it? But I don't know what they do. Kind of like I didn't know who AHG were. Still don't know. JLT, no idea. JLT Australia, insurance broking. So there you go.
Oh, there you go.
Risk consultancy. Yeah. Well, there you go. Free advertising.
If I need insurance, I'll be sure to go through them.
Yeah. All right. Well, very nice to have both of you back. Super Mikado, hopefully we can chat with you a little bit during the year as well. Good
to be on. Good to line up the games I've actually been able to watch and the nights where I'm available. It'll be great to chat.
Yeah, definitely. We'll be in touch. All right. That's the preseason version of the Demonland podcast. We were just flexing our muscles and trying to get back into this whole thing. We'll be hitting the ground running once we get into the JLT and then into the full season. Don't you worry about that. All right. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.